How do we build resilience, and where does it come from? In part 3 of our chat with Joe, we hear how the ancient Spartan legacy has inspired him and shaped his philosophy for building resilience.
Spartan's got this incredible history, thanks to the founders in the ancient world, right, that put this philosophy together. The brand is already built. There are very few brands, if any, other than military, that stand for what we stand for, right? And it's a tough thing that we're selling. We're selling discipline, delaying gratification, commitment. Those are tough things to sell. It's easier to sell donuts and coffee and couches and TV. Those are easy things to sell.
Right?
And everybody makes a lot of money selling those things. So we're selling something that's been around for a long time, that was started in the ancient world. And I don't know, I have a deep connection. I've always had a deep connection for the very things that Spartans stood for. I remember at a young age, if I went to watch TV, I'd say to myself, do I really deserve to be watching TV right now? Did I work hard enough today? That's a unique perspective for a young person to have. So I'd take cold showers instead of hot showers at a young age. I'd turn the air conditioner off to sweat it, like, I don't know why. Right?
And how much of that influence have you had when you were pushed, not pushed, when you're guided towards, I guess, those, getting endurance races around?
Yeah, I mean, I was a kid. I remember specifically a moment, it's going to sound like a fable.
Yeah.
My dad was doing a bunch of construction work. We were always around construction. And if you really want to learn some resiliency, work in the construction trade, because everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And you've got to, just got to deal with it. And so here I am. My dad says, I need you to move that boulder. Got to get that out because we're putting a fence in, and I'm working on this boulder for 7 hours. Yeah. And I can't move it. And he's probably, now reflecting back on it, he's probably standing there saying, there's no way this kid's going to move it, right? So frustrated, I go see him at the end of the day, and I can't do it. No problem, I'll get somebody who can. And that was a defining moment for me, because that said, wait a minute, if somebody else could do it, then I could do it. And sure enough, I go back, right? And literally, it sounds like some fable. But there was another moment, fast forward, when I was a teenager, my mom would not take us to a bike race that I wanted to go to, my friends and I. And so I convinced my friends, I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to bike there. We didn't have maps, we didn't calculate. It was 75 miles to get to this bike, and we're on BMX bikes. We BMX biked 75 miles to get to this race. Sure enough, it was pretty tough racing that day because we were exhausted, right? Yeah. And then we figured out our way home. We hitched. But you go through a few experiences like that as a young person, and you start to realize, wait a minute, you can pretty much do anything you set your mind to. The only limits that exist are the ones that are up here.
That resilience, that can-do attitude stays with you forever.
Forever.
Right? Forever.
Resiliency builds resiliency, right?
Man,
quitting builds quitting.
Absolutely. Probably there isn't typical days for you, but there'll be certain rituals that you follow, or you make sure you don't miss in a day. You want to share some?
Have to work out in the morning. If I don't work out in the morning, my whole day is upside down, and it probably stems from my mother. Yeah. Seeing my mother do those workouts every morning, she was relentless. And before breakfast, I got to get it done. You got to sweat. It's kind of like starting the car, right? You got to just turn the engine over, and then finally the car started for the day. And the other thing great about that is you're going to have an awful day. You're going to face some issue during the day. It's just reality. Everybody does. If you've had a tough workout before that, you say to yourself, well, at least I'm not doing burpees, or at least I'm not taking a cold shower, or at least I'm not running stairs, right?
While I love the Singapore rain, we had to move indoors out of the wet. But then we got into the topic of happiness, and I really enjoyed hearing Joe's thoughts on what it takes to get happy.
Yeah, so happiness is a concept that entered my life at a very young age with the swimming pool and the construction business. When I would hire these young people, and I'm talking 13, 14 years old, and they'd come and start working with me, and they'd talk about what they're trying to find themselves, and they don't know what they're going to do. And again, this was in both a tough neighborhood and up in Ithaca, New York, right? And I thought to myself, find yourself. I got to work every day. Who has time to worry about finding yourself? Like, I'm busy.
Yes.
And I think happiness, as I studied it throughout my life, I don't think it's an absolute concept. I think it's a relative concept. And what I mean by that is it's really easy to make yourself happy if you strip some things away and then give it back. In other words, get unhappy, and then it's very easy to get happy. However, if you find yourself in a situation where you're in a first world country, you have everything at your fingertips, it's hard to be happy because that delta, that incremental thing that you need for happiness, doesn't exist anymore. You've already got the Ferrari, you've got, in an extreme example, you've got the Ferrari, you've got a great wife, you've got the great apartment, you've got everything. Now what? You're expecting something else to take all that away, and you'll be happy with minimal stuff. Because, like, I've slept in the rain.
Yes.
Right? I will take any bed or floor that's not in the rain will make me happy.
Yeah.
Right? But I've never slept in the rain.
Yeah.
Well, then I have a friend, I live with a buddy, who I'd come home and the mattress that he slept on would be in the hallway. He was returning it. He went through about 20 mattresses while we were living together. We were sharing an apartment. And I thought, he needs to sleep in the rain. How do you sleep in the rain?
Get him out there.
He would not be returning.
No,
his mattress is no good. I can't get any sleep.
What about the process as far as doing your duty? I hear a lot of people can, you know, either being the really happy ones, absolutely enjoy what they do every day, okay? And there's a lot of it is dependent on...
Depends on what you did yesterday.
Tell me more.
Right? If yesterday you were being beaten and in a prison,
would be great.
Today would be, if I gave you a cracker, and this is the greatest day ever. So it's relative to what the previous moment or day was, right?
I like that, I like that.
And my wife and I joke about it all the time because I want to take stuff away, not because I'm some sick individual, but because I know it would just make our lives so much easier to be happy tomorrow.
Well, you go back to when your mum did it, right?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'll give you a great story. I was telling Mike, I think recently, my son, my 8-year-old, ran the Boston Marathon. Got done, I was a proud dad. My son did the Boston Marathon. A friend emails me and says, oh, I found this girl on the internet, 8 years old. She ran a 50K, 50 kilometers. So I said to my son, you know, we gotta do a 50K before you're 9. What's a 50K? I explained to him. Yeah. So we go out and we have a hell of a day, as you could imagine, trying to get through this thing. And I'm trying to be the motivating dad that's helping him transform his life at the same time not get arrested, right? Because I got an 8-year-old running a 50K. I don't know, 12 hours we're out there. At some point during the day we talked about the medal, which I shouldn't have done. But he was having a tough moment and I was like, man, it's gonna feel great. We get to the finish line, we get this medal, and so he's got the medal in his head. We get to the finish line and I go to the owner of the race director, and I said, hey, you mind, we've got to grab a couple of medals before we go. And the organizer says, we don't give out medals at this race. And I'm like, fuck, how am I going to explain to an 8-year-old to get a medal? And the organizer hands me a chair. And he says, at this race, we give chairs to finishers. And I'm thinking, my son, who's 10 feet behind me, walks up, and I explained to him, I said, well, they give out chairs. And he's silent for about 5 seconds, and he goes, Dad, can I grab another chair for my sister and one for my brother? And I thought, that is the greatest answer ever. And I think it's because, right, so how did he get happy? How did the chair become a happy place? And I think it was because he wasn't running. Right? So he would have taken a chair, a shoe, a sock. It didn't matter. He wasn't running anymore. Right.
If you've learned something new from this episode, be sure to subscribe, as we'll have many more interviews with leaders from around the world coming up very soon.